Hey yo everyone! Summer Game Fest has come and gone, and even though there were a ton of great announcements, I can't help but feel that this current generation of consoles has been underwhelming. Not that the quality of these games have been necessarily bad, just that there doesn't seem to be very many next-gen, or I guess at this point, current-gen exclusives. You know, games that really take advantage of all this shiny new tech, because for some reason, games are still being released on last-gen. 4 years into this generation. Obviously, dual releases on 2 different generations isn't a new practice in the gaming industry, but for some reason, the last generation just won't die.
Oh. Oh. Yeah. Oh god, that hurts.
Today, I want to talk about the PS5 and Xbox Series and why they're seemingly lacking in games compared to previous generations. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Alrighty, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. This current generation of consoles launched in 2020, and that year,
COVID-19 hospitalizations are at a record high.
Where the state is safely.
Oh,
Whoa! Back down with what's called murder hornets, reported in the U.S. for the first time.
The Capitol Police have gone to the other steps to try to keep those secure, but it seems like they've lost the majority of the control of these steps.
Ending a grim day on Wall Street today. At one point, trading was even halted because of such a quick drop.
With toilet paper sales up more than 100%.
had a lot going on, to say the least. The biggest problem for Sony and Microsoft, though, was the computer chip shortage and supply chain issues that plagued the tech industry as a whole. Without these key components, the manufacturers couldn't get the consoles out the door quick enough, and thus, demand skyrocketed while the supply grinded to a crawl. This led to a massive shortage of the consoles in stores everywhere, so even if you had the money saved up for that shiny new PS5, you'd be fighting with scalpers to get it. Oh my god, the scalpers during this time were insane. These scumbags would set up bots to purchase as much inventory as possible whenever they became available, then turn around and resell them for a marked up price. Seriously, some people were selling PS5s for almost $1,000. And some people would actually pay that price. Crazy stuff, man. I mean, that pandemic really did a number on us. The scalpers were terrible, don't get me wrong, but Sony and Microsoft definitely contributed to this. If they really wanted to stop the scalpers from scooping up all of their inventory, they could have implemented a queue-based selling system or something so real people could sign up for the next wave of consoles. But whatever, I'm just glad that shit is over because that was honestly disgusting. It wasn't until about last year, almost 3 years since this generation launched, that the console shortages were finally dealt with. And this is kinda where this problem of few exclusives began. Let's look at the PS5 for example. The PlayStation 5 has been outselling the Xbox Series by quite a bit, but when compared to the PS4, its numbers are still way down. Even when you look at the PS4's first few years compared to the PS5's first few years, the last gen sold better than the current one. But why is that? Obviously, we had the supply chain issue that I mentioned earlier, but we have the inventory now, so people should be able to access this new hardware easily. Why aren't they? Well, for one, money's tight right now. For everyone across the world, global inflation has been a problem ever since the pandemic hit. And 2, which is probably the biggest reason, there just aren't that many reasons to upgrade. Like my title suggests, there are just so few PS5 games that it's hard to justify making the jump, especially when money is hard to come by. But the money issue isn't just a problem for us consumers. For months now, game devs have been suffering massive layoffs to save money and help turn a better profit. Now, if we go back to this graph, what's the story being told here? There are almost 120 million PS4s out there, while the PS5 sales haven't even gotten to half of that. That is a massive player base that will miss out on your game if you make it a PS5 exclusive. So, these big publishers try dual releases to make as much money as possible by accommodating both generations. Because of this, some games have had to be limited in ways in order to run on the older hardware, even though the computing ceiling on this generation is a lot higher. This creates a never-ending loop of publishers releasing games on last gen, and then last gen gamers not upgrading because why would they, and then publishers seeing that the bigger player base is still on last gen, so they release more games on that platform, and so on and so on. I mean, just look at all the games that have still been releasing on last gen. How many people actually care about this? Probably some, which is exactly my point. It's time to move on, man, come on. Even if we take away all of that corporate mumbo-jumbo reasoning though, there are still other issues that are plaguing this generation. Let's look at GTA 6. Grand Theft Auto 6 is set to release next year and will likely be a major catalyst in driving current-gen console sales. This game has been in development for at least 5 years now, definitely more than that, with a budget that is speculated to be around $2 billion. There's nothing official about that, but GTA 5 released over 10 years ago and had one of the most expensive budgets of all time at $265 million. GTA 6 then will be 8 times that. But since GTA 5 has been running forever and has made literally billions of dollars in return, I have no doubt that 2K and Rockstar are fine paying extra to make GTA 6 a success. But that's my point. Games take so much longer to make now and cost so much to produce. We're about 4 years into this generation, and it's only just recently that it's finally started to feel like next gen. So even if some of these games started development a few years back with this generation in mind, they could still be in development. These games are just so massive now that publishers have to allocate a lot of time and resources into making them. And you really want these games to succeed, because if they fail, it isn't just a flop like it was in the past. It's a financial disaster. I mean, look at Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game. Publishers are basically going all in on every project they work on. It's the high risk, high reward mentality. What I'm trying to say here is basically these current games are way bigger in scale than their predecessors. Whether it's incredibly detailed worlds or over-the-top cinematic moments, gamers demand a better product today than ever before. Which isn't a bad thing, that's what we should do, but in fairness, I think that helps explain why development takes so much longer now. This also kind of ties in with the dual release thing with last gen. In order to even make your money back on these big AAA games, you gotta sell incredibly well. And even then, sometimes that isn't enough, which is why we're seeing more and more games being shared with last gen, and even the competing platforms. But anyway, adding on to this point of extended development times, the devs just can't keep up, man. I mean, look at how fast hardware is advancing. Technology is improving at an exponential rate. I mean, we're already talking about a PS5 Pro, and we've barely seen any PS5 games that truly push the console to its limit. Traditionally, we expect the gaming generation to last about 8 years, but if the technology is making leaps forward every 3 to 4 years, and the development of a single game can take 5+ years, all of these things combine for just a really weird, I don't even know what to call it. The timelines just don't match up as well as they have in previous generations. Like, if you're a developer and you are about to greenlight your next game, what's going through your head? How long will this game take to make? Does it make sense to launch it on the last gen? Does it make sense to focus on just this gen? Or do we plan to release this on the next generation, the PS6 generation, when that comes out? Because if the game is going to take 5+ years from now to develop, the new gen will probably be out by the time this releases. It's crazy to think like this, I know, but it's probably true. If you're Xbox or PlayStation, you're probably already in preliminary talks with developers, whether that be internal or third party, about what your next gen hardware will be so that they can start developing new games. Even if those consoles are still another 4 years out. It's crazy, man. But I want to throw this back to GTA quick. If you look back at the Xbox 360, there were like 4 or 5 GTA games made for that console. But then when we get to GTA 5, this game has launched on 3 different console generations. That is insane. Of course, there are multiple reasons for this. The older games were much smaller in scale and could be produced quicker. GTA 5 was larger, but it also had GTA Online. This is basically the only reason why GTA 5 had the massive life cycle that it did. GTA Online is essentially a live service game, and it's one of the most lucrative that the industry has ever seen. So why would Rockstar even bother making a new game if they can just keep milking GTA 5? Obviously, Rockstar and 2K aren't the only companies doing this. In fact, a lot of publishers try this route, but more often than not, fail. Since GTA Online launched, there have been tons of live service failures like Anthem, Redfall, and most recently, probably Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. But there have also been a handful of games that have worked out, like Overwatch, Sea of Thieves, and of course, Fortnite. The successful live service games are so profitable that these big publishers are willing to risk the commercial failure of bad live service games in order to hopefully have one that has the staying power to remain relevant. Because if you have a hit, then you can produce a lot of content efficiently and keep raking in that money. Again, it's that high risk, high reward. Since these live service games are such a big priority, more resources are being allocated to their development. This means less money and employees are being assigned to other projects, like maybe single-player games. You know, the games that usually define a generation. I mean, when you think PS4, do you think The Division or Spider-Man? Avengers or God of War? Fortnite or The Last of Us? Even if you're a successful live service game, you don't normally define a console generation. Because if you're a success, then you're transcending that and existing across multiple generations. But these single-player games, or even focused multiplayer ones, I guess, these are the games that define a generation. These are the games we think of when we look back at the older hardware. That's what this generation is missing. A lot of the quote-unquote exclusives aren't really the type we're used to. They either launched on the last gen also, like God of War Ragnarok and Ghost of Tsushima, or they were just remasters or remakes for the new gen, like The Last of Us Part 1 or Spider-Man Remastered. So when we look back at this current generation of consoles and wonder why it feels so lackluster, now you kind of have an idea why. The current gen consoles have a smaller player base for a variety of reasons, from inventory issues to the current economic state of the world. This smaller player base has resulted in publishers being reluctant to make games current gen exclusive, so they in turn scale down their games in order to release them on last gen as well, even though we're a couple of years into this current generation already. Games also take a lot longer to make now, with a lot more going on behind the scenes, and they cost a crap ton of money, so publishers want to sell as many units as humanly possible. And the big emphasis on live service games over traditional single-player experiences has also led companies to shift their resources to just a few key titles instead of spreading that money around to other studios with new, different, exciting ideas. Look, what I'm trying to say here is there isn't exactly one key reason we can point to as to why this generation doesn't seem as flashy as the previous ones. I do think it will get better, especially now that we're about at the halfway point for this generation. There should be quite a bit to look forward to, and hopefully publishers will finally commit to the next-gen exclusivity to push the player base forward. Because like I said, if the games are still coming out on PS4, why would they make the jump to PS5? And as long as the player base remains higher on PS4, then publishers will keep trying to release games on that platform. It's a real catch-22 situation here. Someone has to break the loop, whether that be consumers voluntarily switching to the current gen, or publishers forcing them to make the move by finally dropping last-gen support.
The cycle ends here. Must be better than this.
And honestly, this could be a new trend in the industry going forward with new consoles as well. Only time will tell how the next generation goes. But I want to know what you guys think. Are you still playing on last gen? Why do you think people haven't upgraded to the current generation? What game would convince you to upgrade to a new system? GTA 6? Gears of War E-Day? Last of Us Part 3? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.